There is one story about Ayyub alayhi salam where they say, in English they call him Job, in the biblical sense. They say that when Allah blessed him with wealth and health, he was very wealthy and he was healthy as well. He had a beautiful family. Shaitan, Iblis, came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said, of course he will be, saying hum to you all the time, making praises for you all the time, because you have given him everything, all the blessings. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to the story, removed all the wealth from Ayyub alayhi salam, took all of his wealth away. And after a while, there was no change in him. He is still worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the way he was worshipping him when he was wealthy. And then Shaitan went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said, of course he'll worship you because he's got a perfect health. And then Allah took his health away. As you know, famously, according to the story, Allah gave him this illness. He was suffering from it for a long time. I remember one narration where it says, for about 2 years he suffered, and then his wife said, "Oh, Ayyub, you're the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why don't you just pray to him? He will remove this illness from you straight away, immediately. You're his beloved Prophet." And Ayyub alayhi salam said, for 7 years before this, I lived in, wealth, and I lived a very healthy life. Unless I suffer the same amount of time, I don't have to face to ask for, relief from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said. It's very interesting. See his patience. There is, maybe I'll open a parenthesis there. There's one issue with Ayyub alayhi salam. Some people don't know this. When you look at the prophetic qualities, there are 5 of them which all scholars agree with. Some add the 6th one, which is mu'jiza. The prophetic qualities are sidq, truthfulness. Amane is the 2nd one, which is trustworthiness, reliability. They're all reliable, trustworthy. And then isma, which means they are sinless. They don't commit sins. Prophets don't commit sins. Intelligence, which is fatana. They are very intelligent. They are able to solve issues very quickly. We see this from the Prophet's life as well. And then we have tabli, the 5th. Tabli is conveyance, meaning that they conveyed whatever revealed to them as the way it is. They never add anything into wahi. They never take anything out. They never omit anything. They never include anything into it. As the way it is. There are people who say the Quran, and there are some of them are scholars, these people, they say that Quran was revealed to the Prophet in its essence, in the context of meaning, but the Prophet put it into writing in his own words. Hasha wa kalla. There are people who say that. But if you look at the prophetic life, when the revelation first began to be revealed to him, there is one occasion where he was moving his lips so he doesn't forget it. It's in the Quran. And what did the ayat say? You don't need to do that. We will place it in your heart. So it is coming word for word. It is not the Prophet's words. It is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is conveyance. They convey things as the way they are. That is the 5th attribute of all prophets. They all have the same attributes. The 6th is mu'jiza, which means miracles. Prophets perform miracles. Of course, it is Allah who creates them, but Allah has given them this blessing, unique thing, when they are challenged about their prophethood. And miracles are things that extraordinary events that cannot be explained through scientific means, through causality, through physics. They are miracles. There are 6, but scholars add a 7th thing to the prophetic qualities, and that is they are free of defects, physical and spiritual, mental. prophets do not have mental defects or physical defects. This is very interesting. And some people think, in regards to Ayyub alayhi salam, because he got that illness, they think that, that he had all these wounds all over his body, disease surrounded his body. That is not true. Scholars, very important scholars, say his diseases were internal. His illness was internal, not external. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was testing him for his sabr, but Allah does not present his prophets in a despicable manner, where people would look at them and feel disgust. No prophet would be put in this position. So Ayyub alayhi salam's illnesses were internal. It was a test. There is no other prophet with defects. There is one other issue in regards to this, which is to do with Musa alayhi salam. Some people think that Musa had a speech problem, speech impediment. And this comes from Israeliyat. It is not Islamic. It doesn't come from Islamic sources. But some scholars take it from the Quran. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqtatan min lisani yafqahu qawli wa ufawwidu amri ila Allah. That famous dua where Musa alayhi salam says, open my tongue. And they say, Israeliyat may be correct on this. Maybe he did have a problem with his tongue. No, that wasn't the case. Very famous scholar says, Musa alayhi salam wasn't a good hatib. Not a very well-spoken person. That is the reason he wanted his brother to be prophet as well, brother Harun. And Allah made him a prophet to support him because Harun was a well-spoken man. So it had nothing to do with a speech impediment also. Prophets never had any defects, no health defects, no mental defects either. So these are very important things. But some very highly leveled scholars, they are very sensitive about prophets, prophetic ways. Like another example I can give you in Suratul Abasa. And if you look at the tafsirs too, all the tafsirs, I guarantee you, you look at all the tafsirs, the term is used there, he frowned. He made his face frown. The incident is when the Prophet ﷺ was given dinner, meal, to the mushriks of Quraysh. They were the chieftains because he was trying to convey the message of Islam to them. This man came who was blind. And they say that, the Prophet turned away from him and he frowned. And they say that in that verse, the Prophet is being cautioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the tafsir says that, but one scholar, very famous scholar, Gülen, he says, no, that verse is not addressing the Prophet. It's not. Ibn Maktum, Abdullah Ummi Ibn Maktum, that was the blind person, the poor blind person. He says, no, the person there, the great possibility is Walid bin Mughira. He is one of the mushriks who frowned when he saw a poor man, blind man. He frowned his face. What is he doing here, sort of? And he is being cautioned there. That's very interesting. And you know where he gets the evidence? Hoca Efendi? He says, if you look at the term frowned in the Quran, you look at other verses that this term appears, it is always relevant to people like Zalims, Pharaohs, Nimrads, people like that, Munafiqs. That term Allah does not use for believers, let alone prophet. So he says, since he uses that term only for those people, in that verse, he is using it for a non-believer, not for the prophet. So you can see prophets are unique people in all aspects. Although they were such a unique beings, human beings, prophets, they were humans. They made mistakes. We call them hata. They made zelles, slip-ups. This is in Islamic theology. But they did not intentionally sin. They never sin. But they made mistakes too, because they showed that their human side as well. There is an incident when the Prophet ﷺ is going to Badr, the wells of Badr, during the, before the battle of Badr. And he said, let us camp here, to his army. And one of the Sahaba companions said, O Messenger of Allah, did Allah command you to camp here, or was it your own idea? It's interesting, isn't it? The Prophet said, it's my own idea. Then this companion said, then let us not camp here. Let us continue and hold the wells. It is more strategic. And the Prophet said, you're right. And he went along with the advice of that person. See, that is the prophetic understanding. So I'll maybe sort of wrap it up there. Although they are so unique, they are the beloved, messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they go through the harshest tests, the most difficult tests. Because tests teaches you to have patience. Tests teaches you to rely on Allah, which is tawakkul. Tests brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tests earn you Jannah. That is why in Surah Al-Asr, وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Those who convey the truth and patience. Patience is mentioned in the Quran, throughout the Quran. So it is a unique quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. That is why we need to be tested here. Sometimes we will go through these difficulties in life as well. What is important is the result. And lastly, maybe they say that one of the most painful thing on earth is women when they go through labor pains. They say it's indescribable. All right. I remember once I had a kidney issue. I had stones in my kidney. It was so painful. It was unbelievable. The doctor said that some people resemble it to birth pains, labor pains. So they say labor pains is unbelievable. But as a result of that short-lived pain, you bring a new human being into this world. Look at the result. So think about it. Maybe we might suffer a bit in this world. We might be tested. But if we are going to earn an eternal paradise where we will never feel pain, we will never get old, in a timeless place, isn't it worth it? It would be, wouldn't it? Yes.